Next, we're going to queer up social justice. Activists removed from White House pride for Gaza protest. 2 weeks ago, trans Jewish educator and rabbi Abby Stein and former Biden administration staffer Lily Greenberg Call were expelled from the White House Pride celebration. The two women began chanting against the U.S. support for Israel in its ongoing conflict with Palestinians in Gaza. They wrote in an essay for Autostraddle saying, quote, "We addressed Dr. Biden and our fellow attendees respectfully, introduced ourselves as queer Jews, and chanted our support for a permanent ceasefire, an end to arming Israel, and asserted that there can be no pride in genocide," end quote. Stein and Greenberg Call reported that Stein was aggressively grabbed by a Secret Service officer. A White House staffer promptly informed them that they were disinvited from the event. Both women were escorted out and barred from returning that day. This was Stein's second White House invitation, which she found surprising, given her vocal stance against the Gaza conflict. Greenberg Call, attending as Stein's guest, had previously resigned from her position in the Biden administration in protest over the president's Gaza policy. The women described the event atmosphere as celebratory and lighthearted, though the women felt uncomfortable. Well, this is a perfect example of the way this war without end continues to tear apart communities. Mm-hmm. And I keep wondering if the day comes when this war finally ends, if the damage done to communities, to friendships, and to families, can they ever be repaired?
Wow. Yeah, those are big words. I spoke to Sam Lance. Sam Lance is, he was on Squid Game, the challenge, and he's also a Queer News Tonight anchor. So he was there at the White House. Max Benning, another anchor here, was also at the White House, right? Name dropping there. They didn't invite me or Bonnie to the White House. But anyway, my point is that, so I asked Sam about this, and he said, honestly, it was so quick. It didn't disrupt the event at all. They started screaming, "No pride in genocide" a couple times, and then they were quickly removed. They've got the right to protest whenever, wherever, and whenever they want. Would I have chosen an LGBTQ plus event to do it? Maybe not. They wanted a protest against Biden. And this was, and this event was LGBTQ plus with families and stuff like that. It's still the U.S. You're allowed to protest wherever at the end of the day, and it's unfortunate. Greenberg had said that she was that, like you said, Greg, that she was the first one. She was the only Jewish appointee in the Biden administration to publicly resign. Once she didn't agree with what Biden was doing over at Gaza. She just kindly said, "Peace out. I'm going to use my tools and protest, and that's what I'm going to do." And she has all the right in the world. Integrity. Integrity. Yeah. Integrity. Robert, what do you think, honey?
I have very strong views about this. I also think that for an LGBTQ plus event, when across this country and around the world, especially in the Middle East, where gay people are thrown off roofs and hung from lampposts, you really have to be sensitive to what you're doing and how you're doing it and where you're doing it. And what happens in those kinds of protests, shooting no pride in genocide and things like that, is you lose the nuance of what's going on. You're not putting anything into context. We all agree that killing children and unarmed people is a terrible thing. Whichever side of any border you're on, it shouldn't happen. It does happen in this world. It happened in Ukraine last night. I agree, people should be able to protest in this country because goodness knows, after November, we don't know if that will hold true anymore. But I also think that people have to be aware of their surroundings. And if you know that you're not welcome in a happy, joyous occasion, then you go on the other side of the fence and you protest. You don't do it in the midst of people who are celebrating who they are. Yeah. Knowing that what's going on overseas is a terrible thing. No matter which side you're on, it's a terrible thing. And it's not like that 2 seconds of airtime that you're going to get is going to change anything for anybody else. And we really have to be focused on where we can change things and who and how we organize to make change, and make change so that we can get people on our side.
Yeah.
Because the bigger that group is, the more likely that change, positive change, will happen. Attacking people usually makes it quite the opposite and turns people against you rather than for you or your cause.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, being disruptive is important. Like that's
Absolutely.
how we get our message out. But I think we just have to figure out our audience, to your point. Like just where you're doing it, and is it going to have like a big impact?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't fully agree with y'all. I think the point of protest is to be, like we say, disruptive. You can't really corral when and how it is to be appropriate when protesting, because when they were protesting for Black people rights, I'm sure there were more appropriate venues to do that, but they didn't care. They had a point and they wanted to make it.
Yeah.
Again, there was a similar story to this where people were protesting there was like a queer award ceremony where a similar protest was happening.
Yes. Glad ceremonies.
And people had an issue with that because it was another queer event. To be queer is to be not of the norm, and there's a lot of queer people who take issue with what's going on across the pond. And I will say that again, the point is, stop killing the baby, stop killing the innocent, ceasefire. And if you have the opportunity to do that on the lawn of the White House, I fully understand why somebody would take advantage of that.
I fully understand.
So with that being understood, their message didn't come across clearly. They didn't have time to say a full rhetoric before they got shooed off. But a message was made. It got made public, and it is understood where people stand with this issue. They want Biden to understand that despite this glorious Pride Month that we were celebrating, we are still not overlooking what's happening over there, and we need a ceasefire immediately. And I think that's the point they were trying to make before they were cut short.
Yeah. Greg?
I agree. Yep.
Cool.
Cool.